The man at the gate was almost midnight when Keanu Reeves walked quietly through the busy airport terminal. He wore a plain black hoodie, a pair of faded jeans, and sneakers that looked well worn but clean. No one really noticed him. That was just how Keanu liked it. No entourage, no bodyguards, no flashing cameras. Just him and his small backpack. The airport felt cold that night. The overhead lights buzzed softly, and the announcements echoed across the big halls. Keanu looked tired, but there was a calmness in his eyes. He had just wrapped up shooting for a film in another country, and all he wanted now was to get home, rest, and maybe see his sister for dinner tomorrow. He walked up to the VIP lounge entrance. A sign above it read first class and VIP only. He had a first class ticket, but more than that, there was something nobody knew yet. Keanu didn't just fly with this airline, he was now its part owner. He had invested quietly, helping the struggling airline survive when no one else would. He never wanted it public, because he didn't do it for fame. He stepped up to the gate where a young gate agent stood. Her name tag said Susan. She was in her 20s, her hair tied up in a tight bun. She looked up and her eyes narrowed when she saw Keanu's clothes. He didn't look like the usual fancy VIP guests with their expensive suits and designer bags. "Excuse me, sir," Susan said, trying to stand tall. "This lounge is for VIP and first class only. Economy passengers need to wait outside." Keanu smiled politely. He handed her his ticket. "It's first class. I just wanted to sit inside. It's a bit cold out here." Susan took the ticket and frowned. She didn't even look at his name. "Sir, I'm sorry, but this lounge is for real VIP guests. You don't look like you belong here. I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside." Keanu didn't flinch. He could feel eyes turning towards them. Some passengers nearby started to whisper. A few pulled out their phones, curious. Keanu knew this could turn into something embarrassing. He didn't want to make Susan look bad either. He stayed calm. "Look, Susan," he said softly. "I understand. It's your job to check. But maybe look at the name on the ticket." She rolled her eyes and glanced down. Then her eyes widened when she read Keanu Reeves. She looked up again, trying to hide her surprise. Oh, you're the actor. I still don't think." Before she could finish, her supervisor walked over. He was a tall man in a navy blue suit with a gold pin on his lapel. His name tag read Mark. He had noticed the commotion. "Is there a problem here, Susan?" Mark asked. "This gentleman wants to enter the VIP lounge." But Susan started. But Mark cut her off when he saw the ticket. Reeves," Mark said, his tone respectful. "I'm so sorry for this confusion. Please come inside. You're always welcome here." Keanu looked at Susan, who now stood frozen, her face flushed. She stuttered. But he doesn't look like." Mark sighed and lowered his voice so others wouldn't hear. "Susan, do you know who owns this airline now?" Susan looked puzzled. "The company did a deal with some investors, right?" Keanu gently reached into his backpack. He pulled out a small folder and opened it. There, in plain letters, was his name on the official ownership papers. He wasn't just an actor tonight. He was the man who had saved the jobs of thousands of people, including Susan's. The moment felt heavy. Susan's eyes watered a bit. She wasn't a bad person, she was just trying too hard to follow the rules, to look strict and do her job right. But her words had come out wrong. Keanu closed the folder and smiled kindly. "It's okay. Susan, everyone makes mistakes. You were doing your job." Susan lowered her head. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Reeves. I didn't know. Please forgive me." Keanu nodded. "I forgive you. But maybe next time, try to look past how someone looks. You never know who they really are." Passengers around them clapped softly. A young boy nearby tugged his mother's sleeve and pointed, his eyes wide. "Mom, that's John Wick," he whispered. Keanu chuckled, ruffled the boy's hair, and walked through the VIP lounge doors. But inside, he felt a knot in his chest. Not because he was upset at Susan, he wasn't. He knew too well how quick people were to judge. How many times had he been looked down on when he was just starting? When he was homeless for a while, sleeping on park benches, sharing sandwiches with strangers. As he settled into a quiet corner of the lounge, Keanu thought about how he could Use this moment to remind people of something important. He wanted to do more than act in films. He wanted to keep teaching kindness, and maybe, just maybe, he'd find a way to help people like Susan see the world a little differently. The night outside the glass windows was dark, but the runway lights blinked like stars. Somewhere out there, a jet with his name partly on it waited for him, and maybe, tomorrow, when he landed, there would be another chance to show the world that respect and humility were worth more than any VIP tag. Keanu leaned back, closed his eyes, and let the soft hum of the airport lull him into thoughts of what tomorrow would bring. The man in the suit VIP lounge was quiet except for the low hum of people speaking in whispers. Waiters moved around carefully, offering drinks and light snacks. Keanu sat by the large window, looking at the planes taking off and landing. He sipped his tea slowly, trying to calm the strange heaviness in his chest. He thought back to Susan. She reminded him of himself years ago, always trying hard to prove something. Sometimes the world taught you harsh lessons when you least expected it. As he sat there, a man in an expensive suit entered the lounge. He walked straight to the front desk, his shoes clicking loudly on the marble floor. He looked important, his hair slicked back, his briefcase shiny, and his gold watch glinting under the lights. His name was Roger Clark. He was one of the airline's older board members, the kind who liked to brag about connections and power. Roger spotted Keanu in the corner and frowned. He whispered something to the receptionist, who shook her head nervously. Then he walked over to Keanu's table, his face a mask of fake politeness. Reeves, Roger said, forcing a smile. What a surprise to see you here tonight. I thought you always flew on your private jet. Keanu looked up, calm as ever. Not tonight. I wanted to use the airline, spend some time with the people who work so hard to keep it running. Roger chuckled dryly. Of course, but you know, showing your papers at the gate like that, it could make people uncomfortable. Ownership details are sensitive. Perhaps you should let the staff handle it next time. Keanu studied him for a moment. He could hear the hidden meaning behind those words. Roger didn't like that Keanu's quiet ownership gave him a voice in how things were run. To men like Roger, power was meant to be worn like a crown. But Keanu never wanted a crown. Roger, Keanu said softly, what made Susan uncomfortable was not my papers. It was that she thought someone who looked like me didn't belong here. Don't you think we should fix that? Roger's smile tightened. Keanu, listen, this is an airline, not a charity. We serve high-profile guests. Appearances matter. I hope you understand that. I know you mean well, but sometimes your kindness can be a bit naive. Keanu felt a small sting at those words. Naive. People had called him that so many times. Maybe he was, but he believed being kind was never foolish. Roger, do you remember when the airline almost shut down 2 years ago? Keanu asked. Roger shifted uncomfortably. Of course. But we recovered, thanks to investors like you. No, Keanu said. We recovered because the workers stayed. The flight attendants, the cleaners, the pilots, they stayed when they weren't paid on time. They worked double shifts when there weren't enough staff. They made this airline stand back up. Not your fancy boardroom meetings. Roger bristled. That's sentimental talk. Keanu, this is business. Leave the people management to us. You just enjoy your flight. Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. I didn't come here tonight to talk business. I came to remind you and everyone else that respect has no dress code. I'm going to share this story. Maybe people will learn something. Roger's face turned red. You wouldn't dare embarrass this company. Keanu smiled. What's embarrassing is telling a paying passenger they're not VIP enough because they don't look rich. I won't hide it. Roger turned on his heel, his jaw clenched. He stomped back to the receptionist and barked orders about tightening security. Keanu could hear the staff apologizing quietly. He knew Roger would try to make trouble for him later. But Keanu didn't care. He'd dealt with bigger bullies than Roger in Hollywood. Keanu took out his phone and opened a note he'd been working on for months, a message to share with the world. He typed in a few lines about what happened tonight, how appearances fooled people, how kindness could open eyes, how no one was too small or too simple to deserve respect. He saved the note and smiled. His flight was still 2 hours away. He stood up, grabbed his tea, and walked back towards the gate area. Before leaving, he saw Susan standing near the counter, still looking worried. He went up to her. "Hey, Susan." She jumped a bit. "Yes, Mr. Reeves. Call me Keanu. And don't worry, you did what you thought was right. Just promise me something. Sure, anything. Next time, don't let a suit or sneakers decide who deserves kindness, okay?" Susan's eyes glistened with tears. She nodded. "Okay. Thank you, Keanu." As he walked away, passengers stared at him with a new kind of curiosity. They weren't looking at a movie star anymore. They were seeing a man who owned part of the airline, but still chose to stand in line like everyone else. Keanu knew this was only the beginning. If he could make one person rethink how they treated others, maybe he could help more. Sometimes you didn't need a blockbuster movie to change people. Sometimes all it took was standing quietly at a gate. The woman and her child Keanu left the VIP lounge behind him. He decided to sit with everyone else at the main gate. He liked it better there. No fancy leather chairs, no quiet music. Just real people coming and going with tired eyes and hopeful hearts. He found a seat by a window where he could see the runway. He pulled out a paperback book from his bag, its cover bent and pages worn. He always carried a book. Tonight it was an old copy of The Little Prince. He liked how simple it was, how it reminded him to stay kind, no matter what. As he turned a page, he heard a small voice near him. "Mom, I'm hungry," a boy said. Keanu looked up. A young woman sat a few seats away. She looked exhausted, her hair tied back loosely, her clothes simple but neat. Her son, maybe 6 years old, sat beside her, fidgeting with a small toy car that was missing a wheel. The woman sighed and opened her wallet. Keanu could see it was almost empty, just a few coins and a crumpled bill. She patted her son's head and whispered, "We'll eat when we get home, baby, just a little longer." The boy's face fell. Keanu felt a tug at his chest. He had seen this so many times, parents pretending they weren't hungry so their kids could eat instead. He remembered his own childhood when his mom worked 2 jobs just to pay rent. He remembered the days when he lived on cheap sandwiches and slept in his car. He closed his book, stood up, and walked to the small cafe nearby. He bought a sandwich, a juice box, and a muffin. He didn't want to embarrass the mother, so he walked over slowly, crouched in front of the boy, and held out the bag. "Hey buddy," Keanu said gently, "would you help me? I bought too much food. Think you can help me eat this?" The boy's eyes lit up. He looked at his mom for permission. She looked shocked at first. Then her eyes softened. She nodded. "Go on, sweetheart." The boy grabbed the juice box and grinned. "Thank you, mister." Keanu sat back down across from them. The mother leaned forward and whispered, "You didn't have to do that." Keanu smiled. "I know, but I wanted to." "What's your name?" "Claire," she said. "And this is Max." Max waved, his mouth full of muffin. Keanu chuckled. "Are you traveling far?" Keanu asked. Claire looked down. "We're going home. We were visiting my mom. I lost my job last month, so things are tight." Keanu nodded. He didn't push her for details. He just listened. Sometimes listening was more valuable than money. It made people feel seen. "What do you do?" Claire asked politely. Keanu thought for a moment. "I tell stories." Claire tilted her head. "Stories, like a writer?" "Kind of," Keanu said, smiling. "Movies, sometimes. But real stories are better." Max finished his muffin and leaned against his mom, sleepy now. Claire looked at Keanu. Really looked. Her eyes widened a little as she realized who he was. "Wait, you're Keanu Reeves, aren't you?" Keanu pressed a finger to his lips. "Shh, let's keep it between us." Claire laughed softly. It was the first time she'd laughed all day. "Thank you. Not just for the food. For sitting here. You don't have to, you know." "Maybe I do," Keanu said. "The world needs more people who sit and care." A few people nearby noticed him now. Someone took a photo. Keanu didn't mind. He'd rather they saw this version of him, just a man sitting with a mother and her child, not some superstar behind velvet ropes. As the boarding call came, Claire gathered her small bag. Max yawned and hugged Keanu's leg. "Bye, mister." "You're nice." Keanu ruffled his hair. You be good for your mom, okay, okay. As they walked toward the gate, Claire turned back and mouthed, thank you. Keanu nodded. He watched them disappear down the jet bridge, a warm feeling spread in his chest. This was why he stayed humble. This was why he invested in things that helped people, not just made money. Because life was made of moments like this, small kindnesses that no camera ever caught. Behind him, someone muttered, that's Keanu Reeves. He just sits with normal people. Keanu smiled to himself. He was fine being normal. Maybe tomorrow, someone who saw him tonight would be kinder to a stranger too. That was worth more than any VIP title. But just as he settled back into his seat, another problem was waiting for him. Across the gate, Roger Clark stood with two other board members, glaring at Keanu. They were whispering and shaking their heads. Keanu knew that look. They didn't like what they'd seen tonight. The battle for what this airline would stand for was far from over. The silent meeting. Keanu could feel Roger's eyes on him as he sat by the window. He pretended not to notice. He picked up his old book again, but the words blurred. Too much was swirling in his mind. He knew Roger and the other board members would try to corner him before the flight. They didn't like the way he handled things, too human, too kind, too real. 20 minutes later, he was proven right. Reeves, can we speak to you for a moment? Roger's voice was stiff. He was flanked by two other men in suits. They looked uncomfortable, but they followed Roger's lead. Keanu closed his book and stood up. He didn't want to make a scene near the other passengers, so he gestured for them to step into a small empty corner near an unused gate. Roger crossed his arms. Keanu, do you understand what you're doing? Keanu leaned against the wall calmly. Which part? Roger sighed, exasperated. This, sitting with economy passengers, handing out food, pulling out ownership papers like they're a toy. You're making us look soft. The man on Roger's right, a gray-haired man named Philip, cleared his throat. We respect you, Keanu, but you must understand, our investors want an image, first-class service, luxury, exclusive experience. Your actions send the wrong message. Keanu looked at each of them. He could feel his heartbeat steady, but his mind burned. He had dealt with big studios before, people who wanted to cut corners, chase profits, and forget the human side. He had walked away from millions just to keep his values safe. He'd do it again. Philip, Keanu said quietly, do you know why I invested in this airline? Philip blinked. Well, because you saw potential for growth, of course. Keanu shook his head. I did it because when you all were drowning, it wasn't just the numbers I saw. I saw families who would lose their jobs, pilots who had flown for 30 years, people like Susan, who worked double shifts just to pay rent, people like Claire and Max. Roger rolled his eyes. So you're a hero now? No, Keanu said firmly. I'm just a man who remembers what it feels like to have nothing. When you've slept in your car, you never forget the cold. You never forget how good it feels when someone is kind to you for no reason. Philip's eyes softened. The third man, a quiet one named Malik, finally spoke up. Keanu, we agree with you, but Roger is worried about our image. The shareholders. Keanu cut him off gently. Image is built on trust. Trust comes from respect. If people see that we treat every passenger well, not just the rich ones, they'll trust us. They'll come back. They'll tell others. That's worth more than gold. Roger barked out a laugh. We're not running a charity. This is business. We have VIP suites to sell, expensive upgrades, special memberships. If you blur that line, we lose our best clients. Keanu's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. Then maybe we need new clients. Roger stepped forward, his voice low and sharp. I've had enough of your games. You may have your name on some papers, but remember, we have the majority vote. We can push you out if we need to. Keanu didn't flinch. Then do it. If you can find someone else willing to put people first, go ahead. But remember this: when you needed help, I was there. I didn't ask for VIP treatment. I asked you to treat people better. That hasn't changed. The silence stretched between them. Malik looked at the floor. Philip cleared his throat again, uncomfortable. Roger's face twisted into a forced smile. Fine, but keep your kindness quiet. No more stunts like tonight. And don't even think about sharing this story in public. Keanu stood up straight, his calm eyes like steady water. I'm not threatening anyone, but I won't lie. If someone asks me what happened, I'll tell the truth. If people want a reason to believe in this airline, they deserve to know the truth. Roger's eyes burned with anger. We'll see about that. Enjoy your flight, Mr. Reeves. The three men turned and walked away, whispering among themselves. Keanu stood alone by the window again. He watched the reflection of the runway lights on the glass, but his mind was far away. He knew what he had to do. He opened his phone and started typing. He wrote about Susan at the VIP lounge, about Claire and Max, about how people deserved respect, no matter what they wore, how they looked, or how much money they had. He didn't hit post yet. He wasn't trying to shame anyone. He just wanted to remind people that kindness was stronger than any VIP badge. As he boarded the plane, a flight attendant gave him a warm smile. She was new, her uniform a little loose at the shoulders. She said quietly, "Thank you for what you did tonight, Mr. Reeves. We heard." Keanu nodded. "What's your name, Emma?" she said. "Emma, keep that smile. It changes everything." She blushed and walked ahead to help another passenger. Keanu settled into his first-class seat. But this time, it felt different. He didn't care about the wide seat or the fancy food. He cared about the people who made it all work. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. The hum of the engines starting up felt like a lullaby. Somewhere above the clouds, maybe he'd find the next piece of this story. Because this wasn't the end. It was just beginning. The letter in the sky. Plane was in the air now. Soft cabin lights glowed above the rows of seats, and a gentle hum of engines filled the quiet. Keanu sat by the window, staring at the dark sky. Tiny lights dotted the ground far below, looking like fallen stars. He thought about Roger's threat. He knew Roger would try to shut him up, maybe even push him out of the company. But Keanu wasn't afraid. He had faced studios, critics, and fake friends before. He had learned one thing: kindness always outlasted power games. Emma, the new flight attendant, came by with a warm blanket. "Mr. Reeves, do you need anything?" Keanu smiled. "Call me Keanu. And no, thank you, Emma. You're very kind." Emma hesitated, then whispered, "Some of us, we talk, the staff. We know what you did for the airline. If you ever need us to speak up for you, we will." Keanu felt a warmth in his chest. "Thank you. That means more than you know." After Emma left, he took out his phone. He opened the note he'd been writing. His fingers hovered over the screen. He knew posting it would change everything. People would hear the truth. Maybe they'd fly this airline because they trusted how it treated people. Or maybe the board would twist the story, make him look bad. He looked out the window again. The plane sliced through clouds that looked like soft pillows. He remembered the first time he ever flew. He was just a struggling actor then, on his way to shoot a tiny scene in a movie nobody thought would succeed. He had barely enough money for a cheap ticket, a stale sandwich, and a can of soda. Back then, a flight attendant had given him a free meal when she realized he hadn't eaten all day. She didn't know who he was or who he would become. She just saw a tired kid and helped him. He never forgot. He smiled at the memory. That woman probably never knew what her small kindness did for him. Maybe she was retired now. Maybe she'd see his post and remember. With a deep breath, Keanu tapped share. His story went live. No blame, no drama, just the truth about the gate agent, Claire and Max, the importance of respect, and how everyone deserved kindness, VIP or not. He set the phone aside and let the hum of the plane soothe him. Moments later, he heard a tiny voice. "Excuse me, Mr." Keanu turned. A little girl stood next to his seat, holding a small teddy bear. She looked nervous. Her parents sat a few rows back, whispering and watching. "Hi," Keanu said, his eyes warm. "What's your name?" "Sophie," she said shyly. Are you John Wick?" Keanu chuckled softly. "Sometimes, but not tonight. Tonight I'm just Keanu." Sophie climbed up next to him, uninvited but welcome. She held out her bear. "Can you sign my bear?" Keanu looked around, found a small pen in his pocket, and gently wrote his name on the bear's tiny shirt. "There you go." Take good care of him." Sophie giggled and hugged him. Her parents mouthed thank you from their seats. Keanu nodded back. After Sophie went back, Keanu leaned against the window again. He saw his reflection in the glass older than he felt inside. But still the same kid who believed in good people. Then his phone buzzed. Dozens of notifications. His story was spreading fast. People were resharing it, commenting, thanking him for speaking up. Some were angry at the airline for how Susan had treated him. Some praised him for forgiving her. People talked about Claire and Max too, asking how they could help families like them. But one message stood out. It was from Susan herself. Her words were simple. "Thank you for not making me look bad. I learned so much tonight. I'll never judge someone by how they look again, I promise." Keanu's eyes stung a bit. That was enough for him. One person. Changed. That was worth it. A man in a business suit walked by on his way to the bathroom. He paused when he saw Keanu. He looked awkward, like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. "Can I help you?" Keanu asked. The man cleared his throat. I saw your post. I own a chain of coffee shops. I never thought much about how my staff treats people who look different. Maybe I need to. So, thanks." Keanu held out his hand. "What's your name?" "Darren. Good to meet you, Darren. I hope you do it. Kindness is free, you know." Darren laughed a little and shook his hand before moving on. Keanu looked back out at the sky. He felt calm, even though he knew Roger would be furious when they landed. Maybe the board would try to push him out. Maybe they'd succeed. But he didn't care. He didn't invest in the airline to get rich. He did it to make sure people like Susan kept their jobs. People like Claire could get home. And people like Sophie could feel safe asking for a small kindness. He closed his eyes. The engines roared softly as the plane cut through the night. Above the clouds, everything felt lighter. Tomorrow, he'd face whatever came next. Tonight, he'd rest with the peace that he was doing the right thing. The runway promiseth plain. Touched down just after dawn. Soft morning light spread across the runway like gold paint. Passengers stirred awake, yawning, stretching, packing their bags. Keanu sat by the window, still and quiet, his phone buzzing with messages he hadn't read yet. Emma, the young flight attendant, came by one last time. She smiled shyly. "Good morning, Keanu. Thank you for last night." Keanu smiled back. "No, Emma, thank you. You keep people safe up here. That matters more than you know." Emma looked like she wanted to say more, but the line of people moving past made her step back. Keanu grabbed his small backpack, zipped his book inside, and stood up. His body felt tired, but his heart felt awake. As he stepped off the plane, a small group waited at the gate. Roger stood at the front, suit freshly pressed, hair perfect, fake smile plastered on his face. Behind him were Philip, Malik, and a few other board members. Nearby, Susan stood with a few staff members. Her eyes looked worried but braver than before. Keanu knew this wasn't going to be quiet. Roger stepped forward, pretending to offer his hand for a handshake, but his voice was cold. "Keanu, quite the story you shared. Do you realize the trouble you've caused?" Keanu shrugged. "The only trouble is people realizing how we treat each other. Maybe that's good trouble." Roger's smile twitched. "The shareholders are furious. The media is already calling for statements. We've got news vans outside. You've made a circus out of one simple misunderstanding." Before Keanu could reply, Malik stepped up beside Roger. But this time, Malik didn't look like he was taking Roger's side. His voice was steady. "Roger, enough. I read the comments. People trust us more now, not less. They're sharing stories about how they were treated badly by other airlines. They want to fly with us because we have someone like Keanu reminding us to care." Roger scoffed. "Sentimental nonsense. Our investors want profits, not charity." Philip cleared his throat. "What if he's right, Roger? What if we do both? We protect the business, but we also protect the people who trust us with their money, time, and families." Keanu spoke up, his voice calm but strong. "When I invested, I didn't do it for a fancy seat or a title. I did it because I believe every job here matters, from the gate agent to the pilot to the person cleaning the floors at 3 a.m. If we lose that respect, we lose everything." Roger's Face turned red. You think you know better than all of us. Keanu shook his head gently. No. I just remember what it's like to be invisible. To be told you don't belong because you don't look right or act right. I won't let that happen here. The small crowd grew. Passengers who recognized him from the flight stopped to listen. Susan stepped forward, her hands shaking. She looked straight at Roger. I made a mistake last night, but Keanu didn't. Shame me for it. He made me better. If we push him out, we push out the only real heart this place has left. Keanu saw her bravery and gave her an encouraging nod. Susan stood taller. Malik looked at Roger. We'll call a vote next week. But you should know, the staff and the people flying with us they're already choosing. They want to fly with people who care, not just people in suits. Roger muttered something under his breath and stormed off, shoving past the small crowd. No one followed him. Keanu turned to Susan and the other staff. I can't promise I'll always win these battles, but I can promise I'll never stop fighting for you. For everyone who thinks they don't belong just because they don't look like a VIP. Someone in the back clapped, then another. Soon the small group by the gate turned into quiet applause. They weren't cheering for a movie star. They were clapping for a man who reminded them that respect could change everything. Keanu stepped outside the terminal. The cool morning air hit his face. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but he just waved, smiled, and kept walking. Across the lot, a small car waited for him. It wasn't a limo or fancy ride, just his old car, driven by an old friend who knew he didn't care about fancy. As he got in, he checked his phone one last time. The message from Susan was pinned at the top. One day I'll help someone. 2. The way you helped me. He smiled. That was it. That was the real ownership that mattered. Not the name on some paper, but the power to make one person feel worthy. And if that spread, who knew how many people would feel VIP enough just because someone chose kindness over judgment?